Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's narration of the web series The Nature of Predators Book 2. If you are new to this series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. And as always, I hope that you head over there and show the author some love and give it an update if you like it. Anyways, on to the story. Chapter 1. Memory transcription subject, Tassie Bissum, scientist. Date, standardized human time, March 13th, 2160. Attempts to send messages and search the sky's radio signals for alien life forms usually entailed a quiet day at the office. I was one of the preeminent experts on how Bissums would react to first contact scenario, having written several papers on the subject. The protocols that Fishing for Alien Intelligence FAI had were created by me and a few veteran leaders from the institution's founding. Imagining what could be up in the stars. Would extraterrestrials be like us, or so radically different that we couldn't fathom it? Did they share our curiosity? If they contacted us in a non-aggressive manner, it had to be due to an interest in our people. What could they teach us if they were able to communicate in a tangible way? Of course, I imagined that first contact would be identifying a radio signal or a garbled attempt to respond to our calls into the void, detected from a neighboring star system. It had been a few decades since my nation, Lastman, launched the FAI program and began sending probes throughout our local planets. It would have been possible for signals to reach the stars within a few decades of light travel, assuming it had been blotted out by dust clouds and cosmic radiation. As much as my childhood fantasies loved to toy at my mind, they were just that, fantasies. Aliens landing on a polar subspecies ice shelf made a great thumbnail for a science fiction movie, but space was too large to traverse distances in a lifetime. If there were extraterrestrials capable of reaching our star system, their technology would have to be so far beyond our own. There would be no telling what they were capable of. I imagined various nations wouldn't be pleased with being entirely at their mercy. I had no idea what was going on when a convoy of military vehicles trundled up to our observatory, and Bissum's decked flipper to toe in combat gear barreled in front of the door, marking orders and demanding that everyone abandon their workstation. My first thought was one of the Chaos cultists had infiltrated our space program and was attempting to sabotage our search of the stars. What was I supposed to think? That morphed into confusion when a soldier grabbed me as I exited and announced, "She's Dr. Tassie, sir," then shoved me into the back of a military vehicle without any explanation. There was no way they suspected me of being an extremist or a saboteur. As I protested with indignant questions about my rights, a hardened face shushed me from the adjacent seat. General Naltor, his tag read. The name jogged my memory, suggesting that he was someone far up the chain of command. My eyes widened once I remembered the full story. Naltor had been one of the first Selma, the Arctic subspecies, to defect from the South Pole's ancient kingdom. When we received independence from the tropical Vertrella's primary power, we'd invited all subspecies to live under our dome. Few that weren't Vertala took us up on the offer. Naltor was a trailblazer. Bissum history was complicated, with the major powers still reeling from the global war, and with 3 subspecies bearing major physiological differences that kept us apart. It was part of the reason I'd concluded that my paper that we weren't ready for contact with aliens. I wasn't certain that we'd be able to present a unified front and to make a positive, irrevocable first impression on visitors. Perhaps part of the reason my fantasy persisted, occupying my waking thoughts, was the wish that some foreign power would descend and enlighten us. I focused my gaze on Naltor, trying to prevent my mind from wandering. What the feck is going on? Why is a politically important general here? After your goons abducted me, a civilian, I swear I heard your soldiers shutting down all communications and ordering the other FAI scientists to stay locked down indefinitely. We've done nothing wrong. It's nothing that you've done, Dr. Tassie. The Salmon general was much taller than me, and his features much more rotund, but I could recognize a hint of panic in his eyes. Need your expertise. We have a situation.
Where are you taking me?
To these coordinates, Naltor answered, pointing to a highlighted map dot on his tablet. Approximately 2 hours ago, a signal was transmitted through our encryption to the highest entities in our government. All analysis shows that it's from the deepest recesses of the solar system. Let that sink in. Unless this is a fascinating hoax by a jealous rival, we believe that it's not from us, not Bison in origin. I froze in place, uncertain how to react to the very news that I'd been waiting for my entire life. It was too good to be true. Surely it would be disproven somehow. A space probe being hacked, or a rival power bouncing transmissions off our satellites. My first thought would have been that it was a natural phenomenon, except for the fact that it is purposeful targeting belayed intelligence. There was so much to digest in what General Naltor told me, from the signal senders being able to crack military-grade encryption like it was nothing, to the possibility of them being present in our solar system. This felt surreal, like one of the dreams I wish I wouldn't wake up from at night.
The analysis must have determined that the signal's origin is close by. Since Naltor didn't say deep space, had they come here looking for us, or maybe they've located us by accident and have been studying us?
I sucked in a shaky breath, overwhelmed by the moment's gravity.
Not Bison in origin. Well, I'm at a loss for words. I'm not sure that we're ready for this, General, but we have to get this right. The first thing that we should do is notify the Tessia, the Ritala, and the Salwa nations. All of these subspecies need to put aside our differences. We have to work together on this. We can't keep foreign powers out of this.
We're already sending a message through diplomatic channels. The fact is, these aliens contacted us. There's no reports of the others receiving any communications, Naltor responded. The faction that preaches Bison unity, and that isn't divided. First contact's meeting is something that we were meant to handle, though we must be vigilant. Ivrana is our planet, and she needs protection. I'm concerned about allowing the aliens to trespass in our airspace, with whatever weapons and diseases they might have.
Slow down. Trespass in our airspace? What the feck are you talking about? Is that why we were speeding off to some point on a tablet?
Yeah. When the message was decoded, it was in binary. Numbers, Tassie. It was coordinates to the Great Basin. We weren't sure about whether or not to bring FAI into the loop, but we couldn't have this spreading to the public yet. We don't know what they want, so we had to scramble snipers, a defense response. We're just hoping their message means they're sending a greeting party and not ramming relativistic weapons down our beaks. We don't know anything about their intentions, who or what they are, and what kind of threat they constitute.
One thing at a time. We don't know that they constitute a threat at all. I can hear the panic in your voice, but that is not the mentality that we should have.
I don't like the idea of greeting them with a military entourage at all, especially after they found such a simple, beautiful way to communicate. It's obvious they want to talk to us. We should view this as an opportunity to learn things that are beyond the scope of our knowledge. This will be a defining moment in the Besim history. We don't know that they don't constitute a threat, and I'm not willing to take that gamble. I respect your optimism, but I'm not in the business of optimism. Let me ask you, Doctor, what happened to Nelman's natives when the Selmar and the Vitala showed up? They're not around to tell you anymore. What I see is that we are the natives now, and they are the ones washing ashore. We, in Lassam, might be the first ones whose lives and livelihoods they want to take, because we're the peaceful ones. Discomfort bubbled in my gut with that unpleasant theory between us. Let's not start with worst-case scenarios. This is an advanced race who went out of their way to contact us, and who do not seem hostile. Space is a lot further distance to travel than an ocean. Yet, they're here, Tassie, and no, I don't want to shoot them down, to risk pissing them off. So I have to wait and find out. We're right where they asked us, because we have no choices, and I don't like that. You wrote the first contact protocol. Tell me, how we fucking do this? What do we even say?
I don't know. Though I'm delighted to be a part of this. We need to extend our flipper in peace if anyone does arrive. We don't know what those coordinates mean. Well, they would be perfect to land a ship, They could be sending down a probe or other message. Perhaps they want to establish a radio link there. Whatever they sent the solar system message from, it might not even be manned.
Okay, let's assume that we do talk to them, one way or another. How the fact do we extend peaceful sentiments to aliens? How do we communicate and avoid being misunderstood?
I was struggling to conjure up a plan of action, even as our dart grew closer to the Grey Basin. No matter how worried General Neltor was about leaks, I wished he'd brought a few other FAI scientists into the loop. It was concerning how the military was suppressing information, as well as any chance that we'd notify the Bison populace. The internet would make it too easy for this to spread, though I wasn't sure how they'd handle a stray camera capturing a strange craft landing, or videos of FAI staff being locked up by armed personnel. Rumors would get out, one way or another. It was the handling that left me alarmed about how Lostman's government would address the visitors. The fact that our nations mistrusted each other was an issue. But my country's fear towards aliens and over our own people's reactions didn't assure me that they'd make sound judgments. This wasn't something that we could afford to bungle. While I'd love to believe that the extraterrestrials had peaceful sentiments, offending or antagonizing them could have catastrophic consequences for our civilization. I wished I had more time to plan this process, but I figured that we needed to start with a small gesture. It must not be anything that can be misinterpreted, no matter how simple its meaning is to us. That rules out any of our emotional cues and nonverbal. It's important to define our own assumptions and avoid falling into those pitfalls. Language was the primary issue with communication, given that, for all we knew, they might not even have verbal language. The aliens had shown us a roadmap through their usage of binary, reflecting that they understood both mathematics and computers. It wasn't impossible. They were AI. With that in mind, but I didn't address that possibility for my sanity. While using numerals wouldn't be plausible, we could communicate in groupings of dots to form common ground, assuming that they were organic life forms. Mirroring body language was inadvisable. We wouldn't know what it meant, or how it played into their potential hierarchy. Auditory and luminescent stimuli might work, except that we didn't know if they would generate an adverse reaction. In essence, all I had was a basic way to demonstrate numbers, drawing rudimentary pictures on a chalkboard, perhaps teaching them a few simple words in the process, and a prayer to Hearst that his will would save us. Wonderful. Please tell me that you've thought to bring along some kind of whiteboard. I breathed a sigh of relief as Neltor signaled the affirmative with his beak toss. I would start simple. We can draw pictures of ourselves standing beside them and hope they grasp that as friendship. Maybe count out numbers with dots and teach them our numerals. Show our understanding of mathematics as an expression of sapience. The Selmar general blinked with flustered expression.
I don't have anything better. I'm leaving full discretion to you, Tassie. I'll be right beside you, of course, but I want you to take the lead. Anything you need, you have authorization to ask for.
In that case, I'll take a blank check bonus from the government.
If you find a way to communicate with aliens, I could probably almost get you that. Good luck, Doctor. We're all rooting for you, and, we all want to keep Ivana safe.
I know, General. Let's just not be afraid of them until we see what they want. That's assuming that we interpreted their binary correctly. The numbers could have meant something else entirely. We're assuming they think the same as us.
There are too many variables involved with this entire affair. I wish these people would just leave. We're not equipped for something like this.
We never would be, but we've found ourselves in a position. Please try to keep calm. That's the best way we can show our peaceful intentions.
Neltor ducked his beak in acknowledgement, trying to hide how his wings were trembling. It was rare to see the Arctic-inclined Selma shivering on our temperate continent, yet I knew it was because this proud man was petrified. For my part, I was both nervous and excited. The endless possibilities were running amok in my head, 1,000 implausible scenarios that I pictured time and again. If these beings were hostile out of the gate, I recognized there was nothing that we could do. Fretting about it wouldn't change their intentions. Always assuming a worst-case scenario meant that we'd never waddle into any ocean of knowledge. It was against the spirit of curiosity. Of all the instances I imagined, it was never that the non-bison intelligence would be hostile. Perhaps because I always thought the brutish colonizations that transpired on our world were the fool's errands. Let's hope my one assumption, that an advanced society would feel the same, is correct. It must be. My primary concern was that I would make a mistake with ripple effects on our planet's interstellar relations. Bearing the full responsibility for introducing bison races to aliens was a daunting task. There'd been no warning or prep time, as I'd been ripped away from safety on my desk. This was a critical moment for our species. What I did today could define our very future, and I didn't take that reality lightly. There was no telling how long we'd wait for them, what we'd discover, or whether they'd already sent something to our location millions of years ago. Anything was possible, but I was ready. My flipper latched around the vehicle's door handle, and I hopped out onto the rocky ground. Warm air circulated around me, saving me from the chill of nerves running down my spine. I cast my gaze up at the sky as the convoy skidded to a halt. General Nalto joined me, though at my urging, he prevented the armed personnel from disembarking. I knew snipers were monitoring the location, but at least this way, bisons with the assault weapon wouldn't be the first thing visible to the alien surveillance. I was preparing to sit back and wait for as many hours as necessary for a slight sign, but it only took a few minutes for the fateful moment to arrive. My beak parted in awe when the grey silhouette pierced the skies, descending from the light explosions from its thrusters. Naruto looked like he could barely resist calling the anti-aircraft weapons, since the vessel hadn't registered on his radar. The aliens must have been monitoring this location for our arrival by satellite imaging, or something that gave them a view from space. Our analysts were correct about their message being coordinates in our geo-mapping system, a thought that only just dawned on me. For why would Lassian military's interpretation should have been absurd? There was no time for that thought, and the implications it carried to sink in. Our greeting party was going to discover firsthand just how much these creatures knew about bisons, and how long they'd been observing us in mere seconds. The vessel's landing gear had touched down on the flat, rocky surface, sitting for a few moments while its propulsion systems cooled off. A ramp opened from its belly, and I approached it with intrigued, inspired caution. Naruto couldn't resist calling in the soldiers after seeing the movement. I was horrified, as twitchy, flippant servicemen trained guns on the platform from close range, but there was nothing I could do to get the general to back off. Hopefully, the aliens would forgive that transgression. The lower limbs of three beings, who seemed to be from drastically different species, appeared at the bottom of the ramp. Their movements were slow, but with deliberate progress, and their features were cloaked beneath spacesuits. I took the time to soak in everything that I could about their forms. These were organic life forms similar to us, with an anatomy that was recognizable in many ways. Each of the creatures had 2 legs for bipedalism, 2 manipulator limbs, and a head atop their torso. Interestingly, none of them resembled bisons, in the sense of looking avian. They seemed more like mammals than beings with wings. I could see the tallest alien leading the way, with long, flexible appendages and nimble digits beneath its gloves. A creature with stout legs and extra space to accommodate a seemingly puffy spine followed the lumbering being. The final member of the 3 was the only one that had a spot for a tail built into its suit, and it seemed both the shortest and the slowest of the posse. It was impossible to discern the features of any of their craniums, hidden between opaque spherical masks. Questions raced in my mind, since it was evident these were different species. Did multiple sapient races evolve on the same planet, resulting in even starker differences than between bison subspecies? Was there something else at play here entirely? Who were they, and what did they want? How did they plan to approach first contact? Once they reached the bottom of the ramp, and would General Naruto's army scare them off? Despite the tremendous uncertainty, I found myself wandering closer to the visitors, until I stood right where the ramp met rocky ground. The aliens halted a flipper's length away from me, seeming to size me up. I could feel the tension from the Lassian military, as their weapons barrels kept watching over the first interaction. My heart was hammering in my chest, desperate to find out what would happen. However, the next occurrence was about as shocking of an outcome as I could fathom. The tall creature turned its head slightly, as if microphone projected a gravelly voice from inside the helmet. "Greetings from the people of the Sapient Coalition. We come in peace." I nearly tipped over in disbelief, while gasps sounded among the military observers. The aliens had greeted us in perfect Writ, our language. That should not have been possible. End of chapter. I'd quickly like to thank our T5 Patreon and channel members, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, 050, Dragzoon W.R.E, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.